I very strongly agree with that. I mean, the whole thing is people have to really realize that America, traditionally, ordinary Americans have become more and more prosperous every generation for hundreds of years. I mean, because of America's natural resources, its isolation from other countries. I mean, basically, America underwent a tremendous rise in the prosperity of the ordinary people for generations. And then about 30 or 40 years ago, it stopped dead. In other words, Americans these days are basically becoming more and more poor, more and more miserable, more and more dissatisfied. And, things like that sometimes reach a breaking point. I mean, the whole reason Donald Trump was elected, we're talking about somebody with no political experience, who was massively outspent by the other side in 2016, where all the media organs were against him. Most of the large portion of the Republican Party was against him. The reason people voted for them was that people were so tremendously dissatisfied with the ruling elites, with the establishment of the United States. And that's also the reason that Trump was now reelected. I mean, there was a sense that the government, the establishment is completely opposed to the well-being of the ordinary people. And, when that sort of thing goes on for year after year, it really can cause a destabilization of society with tremendously potential explosive consequences. So, again, I really think, I mean, Trump right now, with many of the steps he's taking, if these policies that he's implementing, I think most economists would agree, have a very negative economic impact on ordinary well-being, a fall in the stock market, rise in unemployment, all of those sorts of factors, I think there could be a tremendous popular backlash against all of our ruling American political elites. I mean, I really think America is in a very politically fragile position right now, which is obviously dangerous for the rest of the world. I mean, when you have, basically irrational, incompetent American leaders, behaving in a very bizarre and disorganized way, taking policy steps that don't necessarily make any sense, and with the people getting more and more dissatisfied, I mean, the result could, potentially be an explosion of some sort. And, it's difficult to say what form that explosion would take. But I think, the American government and the American leadership and Donald Trump are really playing with fire on a lot of these issues. So it's certainly a dangerous time for the United States. And because the U.S. is a very large and important country, it's a dangerous time for the rest of the world as well.
I think this discussion is very helpful, and we need more discussions, especially by United States between United States and China. And the scholar nowadays that we have our special duties that we need to input more rationalities and more certainties, and so that we can keep a kind of guardrails in certain aspect, at least the guardrails in the intelligence aspect, so that we can ensure that even though we cannot stop those crazy policies inside the United States, we can provide a proper framework to understand it so that to diminish the potential negative effect to our bilateral relationship as much as possible.
I would certainly agree with that. And I mean, the whole thing is America certainly has many competent, rational people who would be able to do a very effective job of, running parts of our government or running some of these policies, but they're not the individuals who have their hands on power right now. And, in many cases, because they're sort of honest and candid, they're the sort of people who will never get remotely close to power, which is a huge problem for the United States. I mean, we're not a meritocracy. And, sometimes at some point when you pick your political leaders in a very irrational and disorganized way, at some point, the negative consequences end up becoming so overwhelming that they can damage your societies very severely.
偷偷告诉大家，我最近发现了新法宝 Royal Face 逆时奇迹系列，它有活肤露、全效精华，还有精华霜。尤其我皮肤比较偏干，所以我非常的注重保湿。保湿做得好，肌肤自然烹润。提亮肤色更年轻。抚平皱纹超有感，而且气色变好，用心保养，每天都更美一点。 美吧。